And let's start off, or when we think that everybody has joined, let's start off with grabbing who the attendees are and kind of the role or areas of responsibility, so that if there's, in the event of any follow-up or anything like that, we're knowing who we owe something to.
Perfect. Kara, where are you located?
I am located in Port Crane, New York,
Ah,
just outside of Binghamton.
wow.
I love the accent.
I have an accent.
You're probably
Yeah.
you're probably hearing a little Southern accent from me. I try to disguise it, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I pick up a little bit on it. And Kara, yours is not heavy. It's light. I mean, many people think I have an accent, especially if I'm talking to West Coast customers. I'm physically in New Hampshire, so maybe a bit of an East Coast accent.
Okay. How's
And we're
everybody doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm pretty psyched because it's nice. It's a nice day. I think it's going to get to like 78. It's getting warmer
Yeah.
and warmer, and it's making it a little tougher to focus every time I look out the window.
Well, it is going to be about 95 here.
Where are you?
Oh, wow.
I'm in Texas.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's hot, hot.
It's not bad. When it hits up 100. If you grow up here, you just get used to it. I guess it's like you guys in cold weather. I can't imagine living in that.
Yeah, that's exactly true. What we get used to.
Yep.
Hi, this is Sandy.
Hello, Sandy.
Hi, Sandy. This is Jamie. How are you today?
I'm good, Jamie. How are you?
Good. I think we've spoken before.
I think so.
Now, you've been at Innovation Associates for a long time, right?
Yep, 22 years.
How? Yeah. I know we've definitely talked before because I've been around our Max customers for over 20, which is making me feel older every time I say it.
Yeah.
Hey, Jamie, it's Jerry.
Hi, Jerry. How are you?
I'm well. Looking forward to tomorrow.
What do you have the day off?
No, it's just that it's Friday.
Before a long weekend, right?
Right. Based on your email this morning.
I know. I was like, Jerry asked me a question. I'm like, all right, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't know. And I've locked myself out of our portal and I can't get in. And it's just one of those.
I ended up building something for him, for the exec that was asking me questions. So I was able to take a bunch of stuff out of the PDFs and find.
Oh, good. Okay.
painful as it was.
Uh,
'Cause I don't have a PDF editor, so I couldn't convert it to XLS, and uh,
good, good. I'm glad you got it. So it looks like Adam is on. We
I
have
am.
Kara. We have Sandy. Are there others we're waiting for there?
I don't know. Kara, is Aaron joining it, or do you know?
Aaron cannot join.
Okay, then that should be everybody.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get started. So I'm going to pass it over to Rhonda very shortly. She's going to talk and walk us through the Journyx solution. But what's always good is just for everybody there, if you would just go around, introduce yourself, and share the area of responsibility. I mean, primarily it's so if there's any follow-up questions or an area that we're getting into, that we're speaking to the right people. Do you want to start, Adam?
I sure will. Hi, I'm Adam, uh, Director of Treasury and Finance Systems. So I kind of cover a couple different things.
I'll go next. I'm Sandy. I am the controller. And the reason I'm interested in this is because I'm responsible for the financials and I'm responsible for recording the labor on the POC jobs.
I'm Jerry. I'm a business systems analyst. I'm in the IS department working in conjunction with all of the internal solutions.
I'm Kara. I am the payroll and benefits specialist.
All right, well, I will take it from there. I'm Rhonda McCauley. I am with Journyx. I am an account manager and also new sales. And Adam, we have the same last name, however, I spell it differently. It's interesting. No, I don't meet too many McCaulays, but it's great to meet with you guys.
Yeah, you too.
Two.
Also, before you get started, I'm Jamie. I'm your Max account manager, and we also have Jim O'Neill on this call. So Jim O'Neill is a Max partner and had been on previous calls where we gathered your requirements, and then he helped identify this as a possible solution.
Yeah, and I think.
And I also work with GP, Jamie.
Yeah. And he's working with GP and will be assisting with some of the GP training that we're going to be rolling out with Adam. So that's our team.
I think Jim also worked with us on some other things earlier this year that had to do with, I can't remember, something in Max, when we were trying to do something in Max, when we were trying to set up the cycle counting.
Yeah, I may have had something to do with that too. Yes. or found somebody to help you with that, one of the two.
Right.
Well, if you guys are ready, I want to first make sure that everyone can see my screen with a PowerPoint slide.
Yep.
I can, yes.
And then thank you guys for taking the time this afternoon. We really appreciate it. I know everybody is busy, so I will try and get through this as quickly as we can. Please stop me if you have any questions whatsoever. And just for those of you who weren't on earlier, we are recording this so that if it needs to be shared with anyone else, I'll make it available for you guys. But please do stop me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer all the questions I can. All right. So first, I wanted to tell you a little bit. We've already done the introductions, obviously. Give you a little overview of Journyx. We'll talk about what your requirements are as I understand them. And then I'll show you the product, both web and mobile. And then we'll talk about maybe what the next steps are. So to give you a little idea of who we are, Journyx is based in Austin, Texas. We actually were the first web-based time tracking solution available to the market about 23 years ago. We are deep in the pharma industry. Some of our major customers are Bayer, Boehringer, AmerisourceBergen. As far as our solution, we leverage Amazon Web Services for our cloud operation. We are SSAE 18 certified and GDPR compliant, meaning we go through a very rigorous audit annually to ensure the security of your data. Okay, when we talked about your business needs, it's my understanding you need a user-friendly time tracking entry for 250 to 1,000 employees, both web and mobile entry options, an automated approval workflow with compliance reporting, weekly timesheets. Of course, we offer, bi-weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, custom, whatever you'd like. I plan to show you today weekly, but you can keep in mind that we can do any type of a time period that you need. We have comprehensive management dashboards and reports. And then you also need to track not only jobs that different people are working on and different people would have access to, but also for time off tracking. And then you have interest in possibly exporting this data for ADP. Have I missed anything, or is there anything additional that you'd like to add? All right, I'll take that as a yes for now. But of course, if anything comes up, we can add to that. So I'm going to take you over now, and bear with me, I'm going to change screens here. All right, let me know when you can see a login screen.
I can see it.
Yep.
All righty. Now the flow I plan to take in this is to take you in as a user, let you see what the user would actually interact with within the system. And then after that, I'll come back out and show you some of the reporting engine, the approval workflow type information, and then the mobile app, of course. So I'm going to log in based on the requirements. Adam provided information for what like a field person would use, field service, then also somebody who's an assembler, and then also somebody who works in, with regards to payroll. So let me just show you, and I've set it up where I can do a user for each one of these so that you can see that users would only see what you allow them to have access to. So let's go in first. And of course, we have a robust, sign-in security. We can also do single sign-on if you needed that type of thing. So when a user comes into the system, it's going to come in on the current period, right? If need be, they could go backwards and enter information. And the reason you're seeing certain jobs and stages already up here is because I did some time entry for last week so that I could get some time in the system, but also to show you that projects you worked on or jobs you worked on last week can flow into this week so that if you're going to work on that same thing again, you don't have to make those selections again. Just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit faster for the user. So right now I've logged some time against this particular New Horizon job that's available to this user. I've selected the development as the stage. This is just a regular pay type. And the reason I'm showing pay type here is because if you were to take time off, there would be different types of time off, and I'll show you that. Then users have the ability to enter in a comment. There's other ways to enter in notes and comments, but they can enter in a comment here, and it's an unlimited amount of characters, whatever, and then that's also reportable. Now, if it's a comment, it goes across any time entry for the entire week. There are other ways to enter in comments as well, and I'll show you that. But if they need to select a new project or a new job that they're working on, all they do is click on the drop down, select whatever they want, You know, maybe they need to do something different on this particular project than they previously have. So, and also the stages are specific to those particular jobs. Now, I did not enter in all stages of it that were provided to me. I just basically picked a sampling. So they'd pick whatever it is. It's going to default to this regular, so the user doesn't really even have to make any choice there. And then they're simply just going to enter time across the week. Okay. So once they have entered all their time, they would click submit for approval, and it would go through an approval workflow. And we can talk a little bit more about those, but basically we have 5 levels of approval available with 5 backups as well. So you can have as many as you want. If you've got multiple people that need to be approving time, of course, they can absolutely do so. Now, let's say they wanted to take maybe Friday off. So they can come in and click on this time off. It's automatically going to default to time off. And then they can select what kind of time that is. Maybe they want to take a vacation day and enter in the hours for that particular time. So in a nutshell, that's as easy as it is for people to enter their time. Now they can do searches if they want to, if they have a number of project or jobs that they need to log against. You can definitely search. They can also create a list of specific jobs that they work on regularly, that type of thing. Also, they can memorize particular jobs. You know, they can delete if they've entered something incorrectly, and then basically they would just save. They also have the ability to request time off if they'd like to. And we do have the ability to store accruals in the system if that's something you would be interested in. I did not set that up, but we can store accruals, and as time is taken off in real time, those that bank of hours is affected. So any questions right here about the user?
No, not yet.
No? Does that seem fairly straightforward to you guys?
It does. I guess I'll ask the question. I know it's going to come. Like right now, you're showing job and stage, and obviously those are terms that we use. We also go down a little bit deeper into within the stage. There could be one or many activities, or I should say 0 or many activities. So we are 3-tier on
Sure.
timekeeping. So is it possible to have job or project and stage or phase, and then activities within the stage?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do hierarchies within any of these, right? So you could have children beneath any of these options. And then as well, right now, there's an additional column that I'm not showing, which is the bill type. So that bill type could also be repurposed for any additional selections you might want users to make. And then just so you kind of understand, in the background, we have what we call dependencies. And that determines, you know, for each particular job, what stages are available. And then if you needed activities, it could also reflect only the appropriate activities for that particular stage.
Okay, that's clear.
Okay,
Nice.
cool.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, yeah, we just like to you know, as simple as you can keep it, the better, because nobody likes tracking their time. I definitely can attest for that. So the faster they can get in and out, the better. So things like memorized entries, things like that, where they can memorize certain things they work on where it's already filled out, and then they just come in and put their time in. Managers and say the administrator of the system can also create those memorized entries. So if there's something that happens regularly, maybe you have some type of a staff meeting that happens every week or on a certain day of the month, that type of thing. Things like that can be memorized so that there isn't even a need for the user to make an entry for something specific, right? So there's ways to help as far as the accuracy of the data that is being put in the system. There are also ways, which we did not get into this much, but if you have any rules around like how much a user how many hours they can work a week, before it goes into overtime, that type of thing. We have the ability to set up all those kinds of rules as well. Okay. So that was a field service engineer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to submit this for approval unless there's any other questions, because once I do, it's locked down.
Hey, Rhonda,
Yes.
just a reminder for me. If we were to use the time off request system, I believe I saw it from the original demo online, that it'll populate that time off into the person's timesheet for that period automatically, correct?
Absolutely. So they can create a leave request. They can either do it by clicking on this create leave request, or they can select it from a calendar. So let's say they want to, oh, I'm sorry, you guys, I did not configure email addresses, so that's not going to work. But basically they could just request whatever time off they wanted, and then that particular time, once it's approved, would appear on the sheet for that appropriate day. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right. So yeah, once you submit here, then it gives them this little warning. And the warning saying, you know, if you submit this, basically, are you sure you want to? Because now that I've done it, it is submitted and locked down. No changes can be made to this. Okay. So let me go out here, and I just want to show you very quickly a different user. So let's say it's a payroll. This, I think, was in your example, Adam, this would be like payroll and benefits. And again, I have done a few entries in here, and I did some for last week for reporting purposes. So like same thing here. They'd come in, they'd select whatever it is they're working on. They'd select the appropriate stage. And then, of course, if you did have, you know, an activity within that stage, we could populate this additional column, an additional column to show those activities. And then they would simply enter in their time. So I'm going to show you one thing here. I'm going to save this sheet. And you see this little triangle right here, right next to the time. Right now, it's just a little gray triangle. If I were to click on this triangle, I could then attach specific notes that would be attached to that particular time entry. And that's when I talked about the comments, that would be if it were across all the time for that particular time period. However, this is specific for this particular, 1 hour entry. I can enter in whatever I want. I could attach a file if I wanted. Now, we're not a file document system, but if there was an appropriate file associated with that time, you would then have that made available to you as the approver or as that user. Okay, so all I do here is I just say add this entry, and then I can close out of here. And what happens is when I click save, that little triangle turns yellow so that that user knows that they have either added an attachment or they've entered in a particular note. And the cool thing about the notes is those then become reportable as well as comments. So on the approver's end, or anybody who's using the system strictly for reporting, they could see that attachment in those notes. And that's basically how the expense module works, right? So it's the same thing. I don't believe you guys said you were going to enter expenses. Jamie, is that correct?
I think they had said that they used control, and the plan was to continue with that.
Right.
Sorry,
The other,
I was looking for
that's
the
okay.
mute button or unmute.
That's all right. And then the other option that you have that I'll show you, I don't have it totally configured specifically for you guys, but we have this screen called a custom screen. And keep in mind, time screens, expense entry, and custom are all part of our core product. So the custom entry is pretty cool. Let me just kind of show you here the default settings, how they are. But In your business, it's possible maybe you might like to use this screen for a particular purpose of maybe tracking equipment, things like that, or different maybe phases of jobs. But this particular screen can be basically, you can capture anything you want to. It's all in how you get it set up. But we have it out there. A lot of my customers, I do have a medical equipment customer that uses it because they have equipment they drop off at hospitals for surgical rooms. And they track that particular equipment that they drop off simply by selecting, what hospital or whatever job it is, and then the particular piece of equipment. And then they put in like a 1. So it's not really hours. It's just saying on Tuesday, they dropped off a particular piece of equipment. And that way they can kind of tell what their inventory is. And then also I have other customers that use it for equipment rental. So if there's time attached or an expense attached to a particular piece of equipment, they can capture that as well. So I just wanted to show you guys that. It's something you can kind of think about of how could we maybe use that, or maybe you don't need it. But anyway, just to kind of give you an idea of what the possibilities are. Okay. So any questions right now before I jump out and show you kind of how the stuff in the background works?
Oh, let's go look at the background.
Okay, let's take a look. So I'm going to go out of here, go out as a user now, and I'm going to sign in as an administrator. And in Journyx, we have this concept of roles. And basically, everybody has a role, whether you're a user, whether you're an administrator of the system, maybe you're a reporter, maybe you're a manager, whatever. We have very granular roles so that you can control what people can access and what they can report on. So if you're keeping information in the system, such as in this case, I have some pay rates in here and things like that, you wouldn't necessarily want just anybody to see those. So you can control who would have access to that. But what you're looking at right here, obviously there's a lot of ways to customize a system. This is what an administrator would see. So they could basically add users, they could add jobs, all of that kind of stuff can be done through the actual interface, and as well can be imported into the actual database. Okay, so a couple things I want to show you here. We have a concept of dashboards, and I've just created a few little reports here. And you can present these on a dashboard. Everybody can have a dashboard, and it can display whatever objects are available or reports are available to that particular user, depending on their role. So in this case, the administrator always has the ability to approve sheets. If this were a manager, it would only show the sheets that they were allowed to approve. But as you can see, I've got 4 sheets out here, and it's telling me, or actually I have 5. But anyway, you can see that I can do my approvals from here. So it's going to come up on their screen if you have them set that as their landing page so that they can see they've got sheets out there they need to view and approve. Okay, you have the ability as an approver to either, you can go in here and you can check all of these and without looking at them, if you so allow your managers to do that and approve them, which is not necessarily a best practice. Or you can come in and you can say, wait a minute, I want to look specifically at this particular sheet. And it's going to show you can drill down in and see exactly what they worked on, how many hours were associated. And then at that point, they could either reopen this if they wanted to, or best practice is normally to reject it. So if they say, okay, something's wrong on here, what this does is it says, please correct whatever is necessary at a specific time, and it's going to send that user an email with a link to their sheet telling them the type of correction that they need to make. So once this is rejected, that email goes out and it goes to that particular individual to make those corrections. Any questions on the approval process?
Now, I understand you can do approvals in multiple different ways, like approval by supervisory structure or approval by like project or account owner.
Yeah, we do have project level approvals as well. So if you have say you have a project manager who's managing a certain project, but they don't need to see the user's entire timesheet, they just need to see the time associated with that particular user. You can set up an approval system to where it goes to that project manager to approve that particular time before it even goes to, say, the manager who approves their entire sheet. Sometimes it may be the same person, but sometimes not. And then also another form of approvals that we have is what we call interim approvals. And interim approvals are where, let's say you need to shut off time tracking for a particular job on a maybe Wednesday during a time period. Well, you can set up an interim approval so that at that particular time, that time can get approved and that user can no longer enter time on that particular job. So if you've got some billing you need to do on a particular job, it doesn't always work out to where it's, it's at the end of the week or at the end of the month or whatever your time period is. So sometimes you need to remove access to those particular jobs in the middle of a time period. So you can do that as well. But it leaves the ones that do not have project level approvals open for that user to continue to track time. So it doesn't shut their sheet down completely, right? Just the time for that particular job. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Cool. Okay, now I've got a couple of little reports showing up here. This is just, the amount of hours people have worked on particular jobs, and these can all be customized. I can come in, I can review, I can look at this report, and I can drill down into it. I can make changes to it at this point, and basically I've taken you now into our reporting engine. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to show you how the reporting engine actually works. That particular report was this detailed hours by date. We have a ton of reports in Journyx. Over here on the bottom right, there's all kinds of different reports that are made available to you. Compliance reports, so you can see who's late with their timesheets, who has not even put any time in, that type of thing. But our reporting engine basically works the same way for all reports, but it does depend on what's available for that particular report. So let's take a look at this detailed hours by date. For this one, you can come in here, you name your report, and that's typical of all of the reports. You can either prompt for, the date entry for when this report is being run, or you can use some of our just default, run it for a month, run it for days, weeks, years, whatever you want. And then of course you can get more specific here. Then you can come in and you can say, okay, I want to report only on maybe, I don't know, maybe this, find one, couple here, maybe these two jobs. Whatever I select on the left, that's what's going to be reported on. If I don't make a selection here, then all jobs are going to be reported on. I can also get granular and say, okay, I only want to report on maybe these particular people, right? So those are users actually. And then I can also select whether I want to only report on approved time, not approved time, etc. And then I can also report on particular, stages. If you had activities within those stages, that would be available to you as well. So you can get pretty granular with your actual reporting. And then you can select, output options. In for this particular report, you can subtotal, maybe by job, by user, that type of thing, or you can not use the subtotal. All kinds of different things you can do. It also gives you whatever fields are available to include in that report. And those could be, time record fields, approval fields, all kinds of different fields that are available for that specific report. You can also, add charts if you want to. We have pie charts, we have horizontal bar charts, vertical, that type of thing. And then you simply run the report. And again, what this is going to do is give you the information based on that criteria that you set this report up for. So for this particular one, it's just showing you some total hours. I didn't include a whole lot in here, but the one thing you can do as well is you can export whatever report that you have created. You can export that into Excel directly, just one click. So a couple of the reports that I did set up, let me see here. I set up a profitability report. So behind the scenes, I have put a particular budget in there. Let me see if this particular one, without putting anything here, I'm going to expand all of this. So what this is doing right here is it's showing, okay, this is for this particular user, these are the hours that they worked on this particular job, and their pay rate is $25. So the cost for those 4 hours, that type of thing. So you can get the actual cost that it is for each, particular project that you've been working on. So for this particular user, they've spent X amount of time on this particular job. There's their pay rate, and then that's the actual cost. And of course, this is all right now. The criteria for this is for 1 month. So it's May the 1st through the 31st. You can also capture in Journyx. You can capture bill rates if you need to, but when speaking with Adam, I think pay rates were more important to you. But pay rates can be associated not only with users, they can also be associated more granularly with, let's say, a job and a stage and an activity, that type of thing. So, and as well as bill rates, and then you can report against those. Does that make sense? I think I have one more report in here. Yeah, project status report. Let me run this for you. So right now, I don't have a whole lot of information in here, but basically what this is showing is there were an estimate amount of hours that were estimated for a particular job, this particular 2019 176 job. Right now, this is the amount of hours that have been worked towards that 1,000 hours. So 3.2% of the total. And you have the ability to set what those estimates are, of course, and then at any time. So this is kind of a good report. I didn't put estimates in here for all of these other particular jobs, but if you did have estimates, it would give you those and then the percentage as well. So it's more of an actual versus an estimate.
How does the percent complete work?
The percent complete, yeah, I don't have it configured right now, but it actually should be calculated on the amount, basically the estimate and the actual used. Okay. So it would actually, in this case, be the same if I had it configured. Does that make sense? You can get a lot more detail in these reports. You spend some time with them, get them set up, and then all you have to do is change your date parameters, that type of thing, or if you need to include more projects, and then run them. And any reports you create, you can save as many as you want. So you could have, I don't know, 50 different status reports, actual versus estimate. You could have 50 different, profitability reports, that type of thing. I'll go in here too. I wanted to kind of show you. Do you guys have any other questions about reporting as far as inside Journyx? I want to show you one outside of Journyx, another reporting option, but I'm going to wait till I kind of show you a couple other things, unless you have other questions right now.
I actually do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So from a payroll standpoint, is there a report that I can pull each week to see what timesheets I'm missing?
Yes, there's a compliance report.
Okay.
So if I go to, let's go to run a report. You have user compliance report, and this could live, is this Kara?
Yes.
Yeah, this could live on your dashboard. So for this particular report, name it whatever you want, and then, create your filters. So it could include whatever users you need to see, right? Maybe you don't care about the administrator, or it could just include everybody. So I'm going to add these people. And then you have, of course, options, what the sheet state is what you would be looking for, and whether or not it had been submitted. This is also going to tell you who it was submitted to, if it were, or who it should be submitted to, right? So you can include all kinds of things there. Let me run this, see what we get here. Okay, so like right now, this particular report, if it lived on your dashboard, you would know that these two people for this time period this one had not submitted anything. This one hadn't even entered anything. And this is who that particular approver is. In this case, it's the administrator. But if there were multiple approvers, you would include those as well. The other thing, Kara, just to kind of let you know, and of course this is not configured because it depends, under this particular tools menu, there would be, if you do go with the ADP export, there would be an export function. And once we know what the configuration is for a file that you need to send to ADP, we can create that. We have a tool to create that export report in the format that's necessary for it to go to ADP, whether you upload it or whether you send it to them, whatever, depends on the payroll provider, right? So that it can do all of your payroll calculations for you. You can schedule that report to run on a regular basis, or you can run it on demand. So it's very helpful. I would say probably, 50–60% of our customers at least use that particular reporting tool to send data over to a payroll provider such as ADP. And ADP is actually our most common one.
Okay, great. So is this typically for the approval process? Would these approvals come to me then to approve for payroll, or?
Let me show you how the approvals work. So let's look at an approval plan. So if we wanted to create an approval plan, we can come in here and I could say, okay, I want the administrator, whoever has the ability and the role to be approver would be available here. So like I said, you could have multiple layers. So first I'd come in, I'd name this, plan, whatever it might be. And you can have as many approval plans as you want, because sometimes you've got different approvals for different people, right? And you may be one of those approvers. Maybe you're the final one. However it works in your organization. And then as well, you can have backup approvers. So if I save this right here, I then can come in and I can add another level of approval. So maybe I want this particular person. So what would happen is it would go to this person, they would need to approve it. Then it would go to this person, they would approve it, and then the sheet's fully approved.
Okay, I understand.
And you can have up to 5 levels, and you can also have backups. So if somebody's on vacation, you could have a backup for the second level approver, the first level approver, whoever that might be. Now, as an administrator, they have the ability, you don't have to put them on the approval plan, but they always have the ability to do approvals. And there's a reason for that. So if you're about to send data over to ADP and, John Smith didn't get around to doing his approvals and you need that, you need those sheets approved, then you have that ability to override as an administrator.
Okay.
Okay, and then once you've created these approval plans, you just assign them to the appropriate users. And again, all of this can be imported as well. So it doesn't have to be manually done in the interface.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions? I want to kind of come in here and show you a couple of things. Let's look at just user profiles. One thing Adam and I discussed the last time we spoke is you guys supposedly you have, and I hope I understood this correctly, you have like internal and external jobs. And it would be nice to know who has the ability to work on either or both. So right now, this is just giving me a list of all of my users. And if you've got 250 in there, or 1,000, and you're looking for somebody specific, then the search engine is definitely helpful. But if I only wanted to see people who were only allowed to work on maybe external jobs, that's what they work on, I can search and find those particular people. Now, the way that's set up, and I'll go into one of these people, is every user has a profile. It tells you what their role is, and you can have custom roles as well. Like I was talking about, maybe they're an administrator, their manager, whatever they might be. It tells you which groups they belong to, which that controls what they have access to, what their time entry is, which approval plan is assigned to them, etc. But down here, this becomes really powerful. So we have an idea of custom fields. And in the custom fields, there's a bunch of default ones in here, of course, but you can create whatever custom fields you want to. You can make those fields searchable, but all of these are reportable. So the custom fields gets very powerful. You can store all kinds of information. I mean, all the way down to their dog's name. It doesn't matter. And those particular fields can be either text entry. They can be selection. Like this is I created this one with the internal and external for project access is what I called it. And they can they could be one or the other. So maybe they can only work on external, or they can work on both. External and internal.
Is this where you would put a department?
Yeah, you could. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I think there's already a default because that's a common field. Okay. These can also be renamed, the ones that are already in here. But you can literally create any type of custom field that you want. Not only can you create custom fields for users, you can also create custom fields for jobs, for stages, just about anything in the system, right? So you might have particular information about a particular job. Maybe you have a job number, maybe, and obviously you guys do. Maybe you have, who's the contact for that particular job, that type of thing. You might want to store that information based on that job profile, just like you could store information based on this user profile. Like here, you can put in their title, their manager's name, employee ID.
Are you familiar with the tag system where you tag certain things?
Are you're talking about in the database?
Yeah, well, so maybe you have a customer and you want to know everything you've done for that customer, and it goes over several different jobs. You've done several different jobs for them.
Huh. Yeah.
You want to be able to report on everything for them. So you set up a tag that you attach to the jobs
to make that searchable.
Yeah.
And reportable. Yeah. I would imagine there'd be a way to do that by setting up custom fields, and you'd have like for a particular job. So let's go in here and look at a job. Let me see right here. So if I'm looking at my jobs, if there were a custom field maybe associated with this particular job. So here's all the custom fields down here. If you created one, and it seems like you'd have some type of a unique identifier for something like that. Right. Like maybe it's a customer number or a job number that's associated with all jobs associated with that particular number, right? Right. Well, then that would make that searchable and then reportable. Mm-hmm. So you could get time across all of those particular jobs for that particular number, right? Right. Does that make sense? But yeah, these custom fields can become very, very powerful as far as reporting, and you can be very creative with them. But another thing I wanted to show you in here as well is these column dependencies. So in the column dependencies, and again, this can be imported into the system so you don't have to manually do it. So for this particular job that I set up, I have, I've selected out of all of my available, stages, what stages are available for this particular job, and only those stages. So this could be the same thing. This one might say activities, and then you could select what's available for that particular job associated with that job. Same thing for like pay types, because like right now it's this particular project, and I think our job we were looking at, it defaulted to regular, whereas the time off one needed these other pay types to be available. You can do the same thing if you were to use expenses, and same thing if you were to use that custom entry for maybe the equipment tracking. So you can get, and you also can import dependencies so that it goes all the way across, not just job, but job, stage, activity, pay type. So you can do an import with all of the dependencies across all columns. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing I mentioned was project level approvers. So for this particular project, if you wanted a project level approval, you can set that in here as well, and it works the same way as the full sheet approval. So you can, do you want to show the whole sheet? Yes or no, that type of thing. Select who those approvers are, and that's going to be specific for that particular job, not the entire timesheet. Any other questions?
Any limits to the number of jobs or stages or any of the fields?
No limit whatsoever.
That's dangerous.
No, I actually have a couple of my larger customers. I mean, I have one that has literally 25,000 active jobs. So, and they're actually being worked on. I mean, there's 10,000 people there, but so there is no limit. The largest one I believe we have is probably Bear, and I know that they have upwards of 30,000 jobs. And then what happens in the system, just so you kind of understand too, I'll go back here since we're kind of talking about that. So if I go back and let's look at this job profile again, right? So once a job is done and no longer needs to be, you don't want time tracked on it, you have options here. You can change it to reportable only, and that locks it down. Nobody can log time against it anymore. However, everything in Journyx is always kept historically. If there's ever been any time tracked against this particular job, no matter if it was 10 years ago, it's still going to be available for you to report on.
Right, that's important.
Yeah, very. Also behind the scenes, there is the audit log, and it's capturing every single move in the system. So if you were ever to be audited, you have that available to you.
So this is Kara, by the way, and I apologize. You might have already touched base on this, but when we're setting up a new job, for instance, is there an easy way to select the employees that need to be assigned that job and just assign it all at once?
Sure. Probably the easiest way to do that would be to actually import, because you can do that assignment, to those users so that they're the ones that see that job. You can do that when you import the particular job. So you can see, you can import jobs, you can associate users with those jobs, you can import just about anything you want into the system so that you do not have to do all of this manually. And the easiest way to really do something like what you're talking about is in Journyx, we have a concept of groups. And groups determine what people can see, say if you've got a group of field engineers, right? and you put a job in and you want all those field engineers to have access to that job, then you would just assign it to that group and you don't have to make those individual assignments. It makes it accessible to that particular group of people. And
Okay.
you can have overlapping groups. You can, you know, there's all kinds of, I mean, what happens is in the implementation configuration, they go through your specific business process, and they figure out, you work with one of our analysts and they figure out the best way to configure the system so that you can, one, make it easier for the users, and two, be able to get what you need reported out of the system. Okay.
Okay. So you had mentioned setting up the groups for the individual, you know, job titles. So when I'm adding a new employee and I have to assign them all of the job codes, could I use one of those groups to copy the current job codes
Absolutely.
from?
You can just, yeah, you can just add them to that group.
Okay,
If
perfect.
you have any, once you've set up a group, then when the user comes in, and basically you can do that through the import. So if you say you have 50 people, you don't want to come in here and have to type all that crud in, right? So you'd use an user import. And the way the imports work, just to kind of give you an idea, I'm going to click on this little help menu. And at any time in Journyx, help is for whatever you are, you know, currently looking at. If you need help on importing, I just clicked on help because I was there. But basically, you come in and down here, you've got this, like for, just say, let's just say for users, okay? So for users, it's going to tell me what's required in this file that I'm going to create, yes or no. And then I also can come in here and look at, get an example of that of a user import template so that I can use it. It's an Excel file right here, and it's already formatted. So all I have to do is like fill in the blanks, and then I can import that directly into the system. You can also schedule imports to happen. So like I've got a lot of customers that they get ongoing, they get new users, they have, you know, the new jobs, that type of thing. You can schedule for those to be imported. You can put them at a drop point and then we can suck them in on a regular basis if need be. So once you have the file set up, it's just a matter of updating that file.
Okay, great.
Cool. We're running close on time. I did want to kind of show you guys a little bit of the mobile. Is everybody like have a hard stop at 3, or are you okay to go?
I have some flexibility.
Okay. Let me, and bear with me, sometimes this is a little tricky because I'm going to mirror my phone on here for you. All right. Let's go here. All right. You guys ever used one of these?
No.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky, but I'm gonna hope it works right now. So what you're looking at right now is this, and y'all can see my screen, right, with my phone?
Yes.
All right. And we have mobile for Android and for iPhone. This is my iPhone. Obviously, it's a little bit older. But basically, this is connected to the URL for this demo site. So in production, it would be connected to your URL for your production site. And basically, a user comes in. I bypass the login screen just because I'm already logged in. I need it to be so that I didn't waste your time. But I can come in here and I can say, okay, so I need to put some hours in. I need to put some more hours in on this particular job. I can enter in my time. I can pick, you know, what stage it is. Maybe it's management. And then I simply come in here and I say, you know, 4 hours, and I save the entry. It's that simple. You can do that for the equipment tracking. You can do it for expenses, whatever. And then at the end of the period, you can submit for approval. So I could go back a day if I wanted to and enter time. So basically, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You also can have notifications pop up and all of the same like rules and dependencies and that type of thing. They all flow over into the mobile. And then now that I entered in that 4 hours for today, if I were to go to the web and log in as that particular user, I would see those 4 hours immediately. So if you have a need for the mobile works great.
Like in real time.
Yeah, in real time, exactly. So if somebody's out on a job site, right, and they don't have an iPad or a, you know, whatever, they don't have access to anything but their phone, they can still track their time. And managers can also do approvals through the mobile. So no excuse for managers not approving people's time, right? They can do it from anywhere.
Yeah, Kara, that'll help you from having to chase everybody.
Yeah, right.
You can
So
only
with
hope that
the,
you don't have to chase.
sorry, Jerry, were you talking?
I said you can hope that it helps you not have to chase them.
Right, right.
Yeah.
One other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question about the mobile app.
Mm-hmm.
Is there capability if we choose, right now everybody's filling out a general timesheet, basically what you're showing us, but there has been discussion about having the hourly employees clock in and out, but they still need to be able to have the availability to edit their time based on the certain job codes that they are using.
Okay, yeah, we have a couple of different types of time entry screens. Let me go here real quick. Here we go. So we have punch entry screens, we have stopwatch modules, we have allocation entry screens, and allocation entry screens might be something that you want. It allows them to clock in and out, but then it also allows them to make changes and then to actually say, okay, well, here's that time I was here, right? From whatever, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, here's that hour. Now I need to assign that hour to X job. So they could punch in and out. So they could punch in when they get in the morning, punch out when they go to lunch, punch back in the afternoon, punch back out. And all those hours are going to show up there. They could edit them if they needed to, but they could then assign those to, you know, whichever particular jobs. There's all different kinds of ways you can set this up.
Okay, great. So let's just say they clock in and they clock out for lunch, but those 4 hours of that time, they have to break it down to a half an hour to this code, an hour to another code. They would be able to get that level of detail in there.
Yes, they would. And you can either, like if it's a regular punch entry, then they can select whatever they're working on, punch in, and it's going to be assigned towards that particular job. But the allocation seems to work best because it does give them some flexibility. However, it still does force them to punch in and out.
Okay.
Yeah, and you also, so let's say you had project related people that were not the hourly people, and you want them to have an entry screen like I've shown you. But yeah, you've got, say, these hourly people who you want to have a different screen. You can have different screens for different groups of people. So multiple different types of entries, right? That, but only assign the appropriate one to the individual groups or users.
Okay, great.
Cool. One real quick thing I want to show you guys, because I think it's pretty powerful and you might like it. I'm going to pull this Excel sheet. This is just a regular Excel file with nothing in it. We have an add-on for Excel called Report Link, and Report Link allows you to use basically everything that's available as far as the data feed in Journyx to create reports outside of Journyx. So like right here, it has my Journyx login, my username, the URL, And then what happens is all of the reports that are in Journyx, or the entire data feed if you wanted, can come over. So I could come in here and I could say, okay, I want to create a report from maybe right here. It's asking me, and sorry, it's going between screens. I can set the date range. So maybe I want that date range to be, I don't know why I keep putting it on the other screen here real quick. So maybe I want that date range, you know, like, well, we'll just leave it how it was, the 15th through the 31st, because I know there's some data in the system. I say, okay, now I can come in and it's going to ask me for my password because it's respecting my role in Journyx and my privileges as to what I can report on. So I enter in my password, and now I can come in here and I can create you know, any of the reports that are available, even the ones that you have built yourself, whatever you name them, they're all available to you now in Excel. So maybe I just want a time report and I have the option to do a pivot table or worksheet. And for those of you that are Excel people that know how to use pivot tables, people love this, right? So if I want to come in and I want to create a sheet or I want to create a report, now, if you see over here on the right, all of my fields are available to me. So it's even more powerful than the reporting in Journyx, right? Because now you can add, so let's say I want maybe there's a lot of stuff in here, but maybe the job name, maybe the stage, and it's respecting what I've called it in Journyx as well. Maybe the username, and then maybe just the hours. I'll just do something simple. So now for that time period that I selected in that criteria, that date criteria, I now have that report in here that you can then format however you want to, you know, create calculations outside of it. But the cool thing about it is the next time I come in, I can simply change the date range. So, and refresh, and it's going to give me that new data based on that new date range. Do you guys use pivot tables?
Yeah, we use those. So.
You do?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So this can be very powerful. You know, if there's other information you want to keep in a report, it's not always easy to merge it with the Journyx report in the interface. So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that comes with the product. Anybody that's in the system can use this particular tool. It still only allows them to report on what they have access to. All right. Well, basically, you guys, that is what I had to show you. I'm going to switch back over here. Let me go back. And I wanted to talk to you about couple other things. Were there any other questions about the product itself right now?
This is Sandy. I did have one quick question.
Sure.
So, can you like do a report and have like say you have a job and you have a stage, and can you like say, so in a month of, do several columns, say you want to see how many hours were put on the job in the month of May, June, July, August, and then add them up. Would you do that? Can you do that like that?
Yeah, you can do it. You can do either any kind of time report with any kind of date parameters. Absolutely, within the system for as long as you've been using the data.
Yeah, more than
Right.
one parameter within the report.
Absolutely. You can include every single job. You can be specific about the jobs, you know, which ones you want to include. So remember when we were kind of filtering through what we wanted to be in the report, you can make those selections there. And then as well, you can, you know, do that same report. You could do that report, export it to Excel, and then get fancy with it. And then another thing is
the pivot table with the Excel link.
right. You could definitely do it in a pivot table, and you just select your date range and select, you know, your particular filter. Once you put the jobs in there, you can then filter just like you can in any kind of pivot table. So you could filter between your jobs of what you actually want visible in that report.
Okay.
Okay. One other thing, just so you know, too, in Journyx, you have the ability to schedule reports. So like if you have a particular report that you run every month and it needs to go somewhere else to somebody else, you can schedule that report to be sent to individuals, both inside people who are Journyx users, and then also you can send it to people outside of Journyx if need be. So you can schedule those reports. You can do a one-time send of a report, and those are all being sent via email. And then as well, as far as email is concerned, as far as like the approval plans and all of that, we have a ton of emails that you can activate around approvals that go to both the approver, to the backup, to the users. So I get one every Friday at 2:00 that says, please submit your time for the week. And then on Monday, most likely, I haven't submitted my time. I get one that says, you're late. And those happen. So you can activate all kinds of emails in the system and not, associated with different things, the approvals, the reports, just about anything. Any other questions about the product? One thing I'll mention too, just so you know, if you are an administrator and you don't log time, sometimes you've got people that are like people in payroll, maybe they don't need to track their own time, but they need to be able to report. Those particular type of users, maybe even a project manager that doesn't track their time, but yet the people under them have to. Anyone who's not tracking time in the system does not consume a Journyx license. So it's just people that are making entries. So approvers, if they don't have to track time, managers, maybe your CEO, maybe whoever, they may not have to track their time, but yet you still want them to, be able to see some of the data in the system, et cetera.
So I do have a couple last questions. I apologize.
No problem.
So with our salaried employees, we currently enter in all of our hours worked, and a lot of times it's over 40. So when it imports into payroll, is there a way to ensure that they're only being paid for 40 hours?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to know what the import is without actually going through it. So I just want to make sure. Yes,
you can include exempt and non-exempt. You can set rules around all of that to automate that. As far as, if they're salaried, then it's not going to pay them overtime, right? So you designate who gets overtime, who doesn't, what that overtime is. Sometimes there's different overtime rules depending on which state they're working in, all that type of stuff. All of that, we have the flexibility to be able to set the rules around all of that to send the correct information over to payroll. And that's when our team in our services works with you to make sure we're getting all of that correct, right? Ensure that no salary people are getting paid overtime. However, you still want to maybe see their hours, as far as, are they working a 60 hours? Did they put 60 hours on a particular job? But yet they're only going to get paid for their salary.
Okay, great. And I think the last question that I had just reverts back to the clock in and out. Is there a type of tablet that you guys offer for our employees if we choose to do it this way, for our employees that don't have a mobile device?
We don't do any kind of hardware. We do not. We're not a punch clock. I mean, we have punch clock options. Yeah, they'd have to log on either to a phone. Now we do have crew entry as well. So if there's a supervisor, whatever, you can give them access to enter in time for other people. That type of thing. We have a lot of people that use that. So if they're out in the field and they've got people that do not have access, then, it's called a timekeeper. Basically, you give them that privilege and they can enter in time for other people. They can enter in time for an entire crew across a certain job. If they all worked 4 hours on the same job, then they can select all of those people and create those 4 hours across each of those individuals. But as far as we're not really we're not like a hardware punch clock company, you know, it's more project related.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense?
Yes.
All right. Let's see, we can't wrap it up here pretty quick. I just wanted to make sure that I did cover this, and we covered more as well, but the, you know, time entry, web and mobile, the approval workflow, the compliance reporting. I showed you the weekly timesheets. We talked about the other periods available though. And then the dashboards and reporting, the time off tracking, and then the role dependent tracking of jobs, just to show you that, you know, certain people can have access to certain jobs while others don't. And then we talked about the payroll export for ADP. There were some additional things we talked about, which I can send when I recap what we've discussed. Any other things that you would like me to go away with and explore and come back and show you, or do you feel like you saw what you needed to see for now?
I
I
think
think
we've
I'm
seen a
good.
lot. Yeah,
I'm sorry?
I think we've seen a lot.
It's a lot to absorb. But and again, I've recorded this, so you know, if you want to go back through the recording and if you didn't catch something, I'll get this over to Jamie and she can get it to you guys, you know, so that you can view it or share it with other people. And the one little thing I wanted to touch base on with you guys, just so you kind of understand our implementation methodology. Just very quickly, it's kind of self-explanatory on the screen, but basically you'd be assigned a business analyst / implementation person / trainer with Journyx. And they would do like a kickoff, get the discovery of all your business process review, that type of thing. In all of that, you'd be sharing a lot of information that we request, that type of thing. And then we do a first version of your database configuration, migrate any data and any configuration into the system that we need to. And then you would, you know, not only you would go through like user acceptance, and then we, of course, there'd probably be tweaks, things like that we do. And then we would go back, make whatever tweaks there are. And then once you have all of that and you're trained on how to manage the system going forward, then at that point, you know, you basically are kind of out of their hands. You've accepted it, gone live, you're in production. They would help you with, support you with any documentation necessarily. You'd roll it out, and then you would roll over into being assisted by our support team and myself. So just to kind of give you an idea of how that implementation process works. And the implementation, depending on the complexity, and I'm always try to be as realistic as possible, minimum 60 days, most likely more like 90 to 120. There's a lot of back and forth to get everything, you know, working perfectly. We can go fast, the more, you know, most of it depends kind of on just your availability and getting the information that we need to be able to get the site configured correctly. And then also the testing pieces of, you know, you guys putting on the people you need to test the system and make sure you're comfortable with everything before you roll it out to all of your users. So any questions at all for me?
Nope, I
This
think
is
I'm
Kara
good.
again. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I have one last question that I
You bet.
know I know HR is going to be curious. You don't have to show me as long as I know if it has the capability or not. That would be great. Is there a way to track FMLA time and paid family leave in the timesheets?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, yeah, as long as we know those hours. We also have what we call an accrual calculator. So the accrual calculator in the core product, you can put in, banks of hours, all of that type of stuff. But however, we have a little more robust tool that most people use because as far as accruals and all of that, there are normally rules set around those. Like maybe you've got, if you're there so long, you get X amount of time, and there can be tons of different rules around it, FMLA, whatever. Those can be set and they can be run with this calculator so that it's constantly updating, and it's updating those based on the rules. It's updating the availability of hours and the different types of accruals.
Okay, great. That sounds perfect.
Okay. Yeah, we're used to handling a lot of different types of accruals. We do, we've got a lot of customers in California, and if you're familiar, that's probably the most difficult payroll rules and all of that and accruals. They go county to county, they have different rules. It's crazy. But anyway, yes, we can handle that for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No worries. So at this point, what do we feel like next steps are? You guys need to go away and internally discuss and that type of thing. Where do you feel the next steps might be?
Yeah, Rhonda, we'll discuss it internally, and we'll get in touch with Jamie and to get in touch with you for what we how we want to proceed.
Okay. Just so you guys know, when you talk with Jamie, think about, like I said, who consumes licenses and who doesn't, as far as only people who, need to enter entries into the system, so that at some point I have a license count estimate, that type of thing. It's kind of broad right now. As far as adding licenses and stuff like that, it's very easy in Journyx when you're on a cloud. So like, say you start out with 250 licenses, and then you want to start adding people onto the system. You can, add in within a matter of an email to me and an hour, 2 hours normally max, those additional licenses are made available to you. Okay.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Well, you made it.
Automated. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Rhonda, thank you very much. You certainly made everything so understandable and easy. So I appreciate that.
No problem. That's my job, and I enjoyed meeting all of you guys. I hope we can move forward with you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank
Appreciate
you so much.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.